Commission meeting, July 18, 2016. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:30. If you'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, would you like to take the roll call?
Certainly, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Verlow.
Here.
Mr. Vergari.
Here.
Mr. Fernandez. Here. Mr. Lewandowski.
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Khan. Here. And Mr. Lawson. Here. All accounted for. We have a quorum. Let's get the thing rocking.
I didn't see any extras.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda for July 18, 2016 as submitted.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of adopting the agenda as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? The agenda passes unanimously. Public comment. Mr. Muirhead.
Yes, the other night at the meeting, you got up and gave a little speech to the public
Yes.
about the Kalo situation.
Yes.
And I talked about the little meeting that you guys had Kalo come to and all that kind of stuff, and which was sort of a cover-up, okay? Afterwards, you probably watched the 11 o'clock news where you heard your supervisor stating it was a paper error that caused Kalo to be able to do what they're doing. Is that the truth?
No.
Oh, Gary's not telling the truth?
No, you asked if it was a paper.
No,
error.
Gary stated it was a paper error in the news that caused Kalo to be able to do what they wanted to do. Is that the truth?
What I heard reported.
No, ma'am, or sir, I'm talking to her, please.
I guess you don't want.
Yeah, I'm talking to her.
Discussion on this.
Huh?
We're just gonna go with, I stated it was an administrative error. That's
Very
what I
good.
stated, and that is,
And what
that is
Gary
the
Whitaker
truth.
said too on the news. Administrative error caused the problem.
Yes, Mr. Horton.
I just happened to be at the meeting, there was 5 of us at the meeting when Mr. Kell came in for his final draft. And I was sitting there with 4 other people. Mr. Nanny, Mr. Kalo, our previous zoning ordinance person, and the engineer for Mr. Kalo. And he opened up his drawings and he was asking about crushed concrete, and he had bins that he was gonna put. He was asking, could they be any closer to the road than 50 feet? And the crusher was on the print. And the zoning ordinance person inappropriately walked into the other room and she signed it. She made a mistake. But when you sign it, it's the law.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about, buddy.
It's
It
the
was
law.
done by error of Gary Whitaker and the
No, it
board.
wasn't Gary Whitaker. She was
No.
hired by
This-
Mr.
She
Hyatt.
works for Gary.
Gentlemen,
was hired-
gentlemen,
No.
this is a comment section. Mr. Muirhead, I'd be happy to discuss it with you
She was
afterwards.
hired by Mr. Hyatt and carried on with Mr. Whitaker, because she's a nice lady, and she made a mistake. But it's still legal.
And that's why they made the cover up for it. Thank you.
They cover up nothing.
Nothing covered up. Everything was public.
Okay,
How they twist the words.
Mr. Marhead, do you live in the township?
okay.
I've lived in a township
Is
property
there
as long
any,
as you
is there
have.
any other public comment?
No, you don't live in
Okay,
a
let's
township.
move on to number 6, the new business items. Public hearing on section 3.01 accessory structure. Anyone like to make a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fernandez? Do we need a second? Okay, very good. Okay. So we do a roll, you didn't, roll, or not a roll call, but we do a.
You can just do a voice vote.
Voice vote, that's what the word I'm trying to think of.
The key
Okay.
is to make a motion and second for closing. So you can really just open it right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, we will open the public hearing on section 3.1 accessory structures to allow for up to 2 accessory structures and provide criteria to allow said structures to be located in the front yard, and section 3.02 fence regulations to allow fences up to 4 feet in height around active farmland and horse pastures. So the public hearing is open at 7:36. Do we have any public comment?
Yeah.
Mr. Muirhead?
Yeah, you say 4 foot for horses and livestock? Who done the research to say that you needed 4 foot for horses and livestock?
It's standard, if you
Yes,
let me answer this
Mr.
question.
Sure.
Yeah. So in standard ordinances, the allowance typically in a front yard, the maximum height is 3 feet for ornamental fences, but then there's typically an allowance or exception for up to 4 feet surrounding agricultural land. So it's just kind of a standard.
That's standard.
On agriculture, shouldn't that be 5 foot?
Again, we went with a standard.
It's
You
a
go with
standard
the
of the
standard,
area?
You go with the
or
standard, but you should go with what it should be.
A standard of, is it, we're with a standard of what, the area, or,
Just an industry standard that you
Industry
see in
standard.
most ordinances, yeah,
okay.
when they have that allowance. So.
Yeah.
I've just noticed that, and I don't know,
Mr.
you know
Muir?
better, but there's definitely 54 range, like fencing for horses and things like that, so that, which is a little bit higher. So I don't know what the standard is for livestock or whatever, but 48 is maybe a little bit low.
Yes, it is, sir.
Yeah, I think 54.
For our
Some goat
community.
fence the other day, it was 54 inch.
5 foot.
Yeah, 5 foot,
Okay.
4 foot 6 inch.
Linda, do you have a comment?
I was gonna say that livestock fencing depends on what you're fencing in. So if you have animals that are, I've had fence over 6 foot because they had animals that jumped. They thought they were carpetted. And so a farmer's not gonna put up 6 foot of fence if he needs 4, but he's gonna put up 6 foot if he needs 6 foot.
She's right.
Would that be a minimum?
Minimum.
So you can put higher fences outside of the front yard.
Sure.
So if there's a need for that, and by all means, when the public hearing is over, you guys can discuss this is draft language. But maybe after we finish hearing all the comments, we can talk about it.
Can I ask how this may?
Yes? Sorry, go ahead.
No, can I just ask how this may or may not integrate in with right to farm? I mean,
Under right to farm, we have the right to fence our livestock, and we also have the right to have them in the
Yeah.
front yard.
yeah, so,
We have 14 parcels that make up our farm. Some of those parcels are 42 acres.
so,
We fence from the back to the front. And you can have, if you're pasturing cows, you have the same height fence, whether it's a back fence, a side fence, or a front fence. And again, farmers don't invest extra money. They have higher fence than we need. But you have to, and I would tell you that most of my fence for my cows, and we pasture our animals, because we raise ours humanely, it's probably in excess of 4 feet. And some of it's closer to 5. And I have 8 miles of pasture fence. So I'm a little concerned when you talk about the front fence, because again, of our parcels, many of our parcels run from the road to the half-mile mark back. Because again, not to give you a history lesson, but Michigan is a land-grant state. And so our original farmers got 160 acres, which is a quarter section, which was a half-mile by a half-mile. So most farmers that own any portion of the original land, their fields go back a half a mile. And again, I'm a little concerned when you tell me my front fence can't keep the animals enclosed. I have a pasture that's probably in excess of 150 acres. Because I pasture a couple hundred head of dairy cattle on it.
Are we talking about the agricultural
any district that allows for agricultural uses or where there are existing agricultural uses,
Okay.
that'd be where we're talking about.
So perhaps we should look into this further and see, or, Bart, did you have a comment?
I mean, if it's residential, it's residential. And I guess if it's farmland, if it's agricultural residential, and you've got animals, it sounds like, I would think you could put up any fence you need. I think your neighbors would be more upset if your bulls were getting all over the fence and getting into your yard than if you had a 6-foot fence or something. I don't know, but
Are we
it seems like we kind of got a Venn diagram of these things really overlapping, and
You put up a 4-foot.
Are we distinguishing between pets or farms?
let's go back to
Just across
what was the
board?
root purpose here?
So, the root purpose was that in your current zoning ordinance, anything over 3 foot high in a front yard was prohibited.
Okay.
Okay, so we were gonna make an allowance to allow for up to 4 feet in the front yard to enclose active farmland, and then we amended that further to allow for horse pastures, because we recognize that, in fact, that's a pretty major use, and people are interested in being able to utilize that front part of the land for horse pastures. With regard to the Right to Farm Act, the Right to Farm Act protects existing farms and existing farm operations and allows for them to utilize that land based on best management practices. So it doesn't allow for them to do something inconsistent with a zoning ordinance that is not already existing. So it would protect a farmer from nuisance lawsuits that could come based on their operation because of things that they already, as long as they are maintaining best management practices. That's really what the Right to Farm Act is about, is protection for farmers against nuisance lawsuits. It's not a tool to circumvent zoning law. So if somebody already has fencing that's in excess of that, it would be considered legal non-conforming anyhow, so it would be allowed to remain. But moving forward, any new uses, any new farming operations should conform to the extent possible to the existing zoning
I
ordinance.
guess, let me ask it from the other direction. If I needed to put up, or wanted to put up a 6-foot fence as opposed to a 4-foot fence to contain animals for something other than this, what would you call it? Not, you call it privacy fence, you call it just an aesthetic fence.
Oh, like a decorative fence.
Decorative fence. How would that upset me? I guess I'm saying, what's the purpose of this? Who are we protecting? What's?
I think traditionally, the reason that ordinances have the maximum height of 3 foot and ornamental requirement in the front yard is for aesthetic purposes. So when you have residential use, when you have residential neighbors, that front 50 feet, which is in front of the house, is typically preserved as a front yard. I understand that it's for aesthetic purposes. It does not preclude you from putting up a higher fence in a rear yard.
Yeah, understood.
But I guess I still don't understand how, say you have a farm animal that has a lot of spunk, and you need to keep that animal in, and you know what you need.
Well, usually the front yard isn't the spot where you're doing that.
Well, okay.
Depends on the yard.
I think, guys, we should just.
It depends on the
look at
property.
this- Look at this and just go simple. Unless you have something, a reason other than just having a decorative fence, it's 3 foot. If you have something more than, if you need something more than 3 foot, come to us and ask. We should have no problem approving it. But I'll tell you, like what is it, Humane Society or something like that? To even let it, you have to prove anything to get a dog from them. And they require a fence of, X height, and I want to say it's 4 foot or 5 foot to be able to sign the document to take home a little puppy. So it can't get over your fence.
Linda?
So,
Okay, your planner said that this is for, the Michigan Right to Farm Act is for existing farms. Absolutely 100% wrong. Michigan Right to Farm Act allows people to farm. If I want to expand my operation, I have every right to expand my operation, and I can expand it according to best management practices, even if your ordinance says I can't. So he's 100% wrong when he tells you this is for existing farms. It's for all agricultural activities. And again, as long as I'm working with the best management practice, I have the right to farm without the township adding unnecessary burden and regulation. Because it's nothing more than a taking is what it really is. They're trying to take the farmer's right to farm. Now, I had a neighbor not too long ago who raised emus. I don't know if you know anything about emus. They look a little like an ostrich. He had fencing a whole lot higher than 4 or 5
probably 10 foot.
because those birds, they get out and they run about 40 miles an hour down the road. And that's what I'm saying. When you talk about front yard, you drive this community, and I'm not a horse farmer, but my friends who are, most of them pasture their horses right up to the road. I got a 1/4 mile of pasture that runs along 5 mile, right up to the road. So I don't get where we're being told that the animals aren't being pastured along the road, because they are. And I'm concerned when you have a planner that that gives you statements and information that's incorrect about Michigan right to farm. It's for all farming, it's for all agricultural activities, not just for existing.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes, this discussion has gone way off track. We are talking about one line in the fencing ordinance, one line. It's got nothing to do with the right to farm. It's got nothing to do with fencing regulations in general. The only thing that was permitted was a permissive provision, not a restrictive, no limitation on any citizen. It just says that for fences 4 feet or under, they aren't subject to the rest of this rule. There is no restrictive covenant in this at all. It has nothing to do with the right to farm. This whole thing here was based on liberalizing the rules to allow owners to do more with their property. Nothing in this ordinance works restricts anybody's rights on anything, let alone the right to farm. So we have gone way off track on this discussion. There is one sentence here. It says, fencers not greater than 4 feet in height enclosing an active farmland or horse pasture shall be exempt from the regulations and requirements of the section. That doesn't mean that there's any higher requirement for horses or anybody else. It's a permissive thing. So we're way off track of what we're talking
Now,
about.
what do you mean by permissive?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm reading, so this summary here is misleading.
It has expanded what the role was in the past, okay, is that right? It actually is an expansion
They
of
tell us 4 foot.
the size of the
Caleb,
fence,
what's
from
3
3 foot to 4 foot
In the front yard.
in the front yard.
Now, one could say, well, we should expand it some more, we should make the fences higher, we should do this or that. Fine, maybe we should do that someday. But today, we're considering this one line, and it's permissive to the homeowner.
And we had quite a bit of discussion about this in the past.
So it's
And
not
this
about
is
whether it
what
should
we
be 4 feet
discern-
or 4. We're just saying that if it is 4 feet, we're gonna let you do what you wanna do. We're not discussing how high the fence should be, or anything else. So, we're way off track on this discussion.
Thank you. Bart, are you good?
Well,
I think, I believe I understand what he's saying, yes, and that makes sense, and I understand this is pretty permissive and exclusive, so.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Hunt?
yeah, I've lived here quite a bit longer than most of you, and I've never heard a problem with a fence, okay? And I personally think there's a lot more problems in Salem Township, and you should know them firsthand, than worrying about a fence in somebody's front yard. You're worrying about something that's ridiculous when you should be out there doing stuff that's worthwhile.
Didn't this come up, something in the ZBA? Is this something, no, where did this, oh, it came in through the office, and that's how,
So
just,
while we're looking at the issue that did come up through the ZBA, the issue of accessory structures in the front yard, this issue was also on the table, so we took a vote at the same time.
so it would do something to help. Okay. All right, any other comments?
Yeah, one more thing. You're worried about fences in the people's front yard, 4 foot, etc., but yet you go down here and let Kalo build a pile 30-some foot high by the
Okay,
road, and you
let's
give me a
stick-
blessing.
Let's stick to our agenda here.
Well, I'm just telling you the way it is, guys.
Well, we're doing the public hearing on the fences and the accessory structures. let's stick to the agenda. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. So,
If
need
I
a
may,
motion?
Madam Chair, the rest of the changes that we're considering are all permissive. They're all expanding the right, allowing two structures on the property, allowing a barn and a shed. Nothing in here is restrictive. We're expanding the rights of the citizens to use their property. That's what the whole gist of this discussion was, and that's what we told the planner, and that's what he come back with. So nothing in here is restricting anybody, it's expanding their rights.
That's right. Could you go through just the comparison, column to column for the fence of what it reads now and what it's going to?
If
Or
there are no more comments, I
proposed.
would suggest you go ahead and close your public comment period.
okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, Dan, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Gerald.
And then you
The
can-
public hearing is,
if you want to do-
oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on section 3.01 accessory structures, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The public hearing on that is closed at 7:52.
Okay. So your question was in reference to the height of the fences. Section 3.02 fence regulations, down under B, we've got fence heights.
I'll handle that.
And then B1 says fence within a required front yard setback area or any front yard between the front building line and the road right-of-way shall be limited to ornamental fences not to exceed 3 feet in height. And so then we jump down to number 4, which is the new language that we've added. That says a fence not greater than 4 feet in height enclosing active farmland or horse pasture shall be exempt from the regulations and requirements of this section. So that number 4 is exempting you from number 3.
Thank you very much.
But only if your fence is 4 feet or less.
Correct.
So if I need a 5-foot fence, you're saying I have to comply with all these other regulations?
Well, if you'd like me to answer that.
Yes, please.
question. So yes, if you were trying to do a 5-foot fence, you would have to ask for a variance. So if the planning commission thinks that 5 foot is more appropriate for farmland and pastures, I mean, we could up this to 5 feet.
I have to go with 10 foot to keep deer out of my dang garden, I'll tell you that. I mean, that's, are you keeping something in or you're keeping something out? It all depends on what you're doing, but,
Depends on the animal.
Well, I think in our discussion, we talked about existing practices. We don't mean to interfere with existing practices, but we want to try to set some sort of guideline for the future so that people can reference it. I don't think there's anything restrictive. And, the mechanics are there if somebody wants to have a variance from what our language says. So, and what we're doing is we're being less restrictive, and I think that's, to be recognized, as Bill said.
Well, I think the question that's come up is whether 4 foot is high enough to accomplish what the allowance that you're trying to make.
Let me state though, that if we're gonna go with this with 4 foot, and let's say Linda wanted to do a 5 foot, now she's gotta come in and ask for a variance, why?
You gotta pay
Because
the
that's right to
variance.
farm, that's what she needs for her cattle or horses or whatever it might be.
So if she's got an existing pasture there and that 5 foot is consistent with best management practices, that's where the right to farm would protect you. If you want to expand your operation, create a new farming operation, you would have to comply with the zoning ordinance.
Which is
Zoning-
totally ridiculous.
No, you don't.
The zoning ordinance would permit in a district that allows for farming, you to expand your operation. But when you're creating new pieces that do not comply, I mean, the Right to Farm Act is somewhat of a misnomer.
I don't understand the difference between the old farm and the new farm. I mean, I do understand that, but I don't understand why it,
someone comes in here, let's just build a scenario. Someone comes in here moves from Detroit and buys 80 acres
Well, the yak farm.
and wants to have emus,
Yes.
they'd have to come in here and get a variance to put a fence that would contain their emus.
Not if they put the fence outside the front yard 50 foot.
No, they're containing, they're going setback, containing their whole property, putting a gate in there, they're using the entire piece, every corner. They'd have to come in here and get a variance.
Yes or no?
My first blush,
I got it.
Thank you, thank you.
It is a yes or no question. The language here would say that they would need a variance?
that's
No,
my,
the language doesn't say that.
Can't we just
This,
put
this
4
language
foot
does not
sides?
add any
Yeah.
restrictions at all
Yeah.
to our ordinances, none.
it doesn't add any
It
restrictions.
doesn't add,
But
I'm not
these-
talking about what exists outside of what we're doing.
Okay, well, then let me ask it this way. The way you interpret the existing ordinance, would that person, if a person comes in, same person, same 80 acres,
Yes,
comes in here and they want to put a fence along the front of their property,
5-foot
along the
fence.
road frontage, and they want to go above 3 feet, the way it reads today, whatever, would they need to get some sort of variance?
yes.
Okay, so what we're saying is, the requirement for that person to come in here and go through a whole bunch of paperwork goes from a cutoff at 3 feet to a cutoff at 4 feet.
And gets rid of the ornamental piece. Now,
It's because it's the front yard.
because
So-
it's the front yard.
So
See,
so we're trying to protect who
Yeah,
from,
From what?
in the front yard?
It's, like I said before, my understanding is that this is an aesthetic. The intent is to keep that front yard clear, and all other issues, fences aside, uses are not permitted in the front yard, buildings are not permitted in the front yard. There's, a standard that says that front 50 feet from the ground up is not to be developed, right? So it's a front yard, it's protected open space on the piece of property.
I guess we realize this is Salem Township.
This is more applicable, isn't that, Paul, to there are smaller lots, and people that might be on an 1.5 acre, 2 acre lot next to one another might have some objection if a person's putting a big fence up in the front. I think it's usually not a problem with farms. The farms have a lot of property, and it's recognized what they do. That's where we've gotten complaints, is from people on smaller lots.
I'll tell you what, this is your language, this is your ordinance, and if you feel like what we've proposed, and we've discussed it a number of times, like Mr. Lawson said, if we want to do something different, we certainly can.
I mean, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
That's why we're looking at it. That's the whole purpose, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I
Yeah.
presented to
No,
you
no.
what I see as standards and standard ordinance language. So if we want to do something different, by all means, we can.
Perfect, yes, absolutely. I mean, if we want to say ornamental fences for ornamental purposes should be 3 feet or less. If it's a containment fence, it's got to be beyond the setback and make it whatever you want.
Does that make sense?
I mean, that's really where we're at. I mean, if
What do you mean by setback?
you know,
What do you mean by setback?
well, we're talking about that 50 feet, the 50 feet front setback.
Right, so if you have some type of animal that you think needs more than the 48 inches that are being allowed for based on this new language, then maybe you want to put it in a different area of your property. I mean, that's the way the ordinance would read now, based on that. Currently, the ordinance only allows for 3 foot, so you wouldn't be able to put anything.
Put anything.
And the
Right,
horse could
so
step
I
on it.
understand, we're moving to we're only getting better side.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you move forward with the language the way it is tonight, you make a recommendation to the board, and you want to study this further, by all means, we can come back and change it, update it. But for now, this is being more liberal. It's allowing for a higher fence.
Yeah, it just seems silly to say 4 feet when you've got emus or yaks or what have you, and for an agricultural community, for everybody to have to come in, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. But so,
If they want those animals in the front yard.
if they want
If you want to
animals in
see
the front
animals,
yard.
and if you want to see emus and yaks and everything like that in the front yard, then you
So-
probably should go higher.
Are some of the other junk things? What are the, what's the pitfall well, what are we gonna say? Oh, well, you didn't think of this, planning commission, then when we get beat
What's
over the head for what's next. You know, how come you didn't think of
That's
this,
inevitable.
Bart?
That's
You know?
inevitable. Don't
You
worry
know,
about that.
What situation's gonna
just
come
write
up
that
that,
one.
I mean, cause we're trying to, you know, we're
Oh, really?
agricultural
I mean,
community, we try to support the farmers in the area.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I believe that we're spending a lot of time in agreement. And one of the things I think we need to clarify here, because we heard strongly from agriculture people that make their livelihood off of agriculture, that they may need a higher fence on their
Yeah.
farms. And I think that just needs to be clearly stated in the ordinance. Because I don't feel it necessary for someone that works in agriculture to have to come in and get a variance to put another foot on their fence height. So I would like to see it clarified in here on the agriculture, the farm and agriculture. It kind of sort of does it, but it.
Are you suggesting that you wanna go up to 5 then instead of 4? I mean, that's really
well,
the.
I thought we were just talking about decorative is this and everything else
Well,
is
the
as
decorative is
needed,
one thing,
right?
he's not gonna, they're not gonna hold cows in with decorative fence and stuff, they're gonna use structural
You
fence.
said you want cow fencing to be decorative.
So I'm just saying that there should just be some clarity,
Yeah.
Okay.
that we allow our agriculture neighbors, because you know, good fences make good neighbors.
I have no fences.
Can we say that if fencing in a front yard setback is for farmland or livestock pasture, it is exempt
Oh,
from,
yeah.
and then not specify how high? It's specified the use.
If it's for
If it's used for these,
non-decorative,
it's
if it's for non-decorative purposes.
So it already, if I may,
Yes.
it already is making that exemption. So it's exempting you from the 3-foot decorative in nature, right? Can be up to 4 feet, doesn't have to be decorative. I think the question that I'm hearing from you is whether or not you want to allow for 5 feet, 6 feet, or a 10-foot deer fence in front of your.
For the agricultural purpose.
For agricultural purposes, correct. And that's what it
Yeah.
says, fence
That
is
makes
not greater than,
sense.
the 4 feet, aside. Fences enclosing active farmland or horse pastures shall be exempt from the regulation and requirements of this section. So the question then is, do you want to put a topmost limit on that
For agricultural?
for agriculture? So it's,
I-
so picture then, right up along the road right of way, a 10-foot post with deer fence running along. So this is the view you have as you're driving down the country.
That doesn't make sense to have a 10-foot fence along a road.
Yes, it does.
Well, that's what we're talking about. So that's the
Huh?
question.
Yeah.
Maybe
There's
you
a
wanna
place
bump
that
it up to
got,
5.
reindeer in it.
Has the need for a 10-foot
Have a
fence.
10-foot fence.
Then they take that activity and they put it further back.
What about this B3 fences in any other zoning district shall not exceed 6 feet?
That's
something weird that that
yeah, so that's
Talk
for
about front
commercial and industrial districts.
Point of information, what did you say about industrial? What they exempt?
Industrial districts have a higher fence height.
That verbiage good to you, Bill? Is that verbiage good to you?
What'd you say?
Is the verbiage good for you, the no limits on livestock, whatever?
Oh, I'm
Right
just,
there.
this is just mine.
Yeah, but
Chicken
I'd
scratch.
like for him to see it. He's our attorney, he's the attorney.
Hey Pam,
Yes.
you have decorative fence in the front yard, 3 foot or so. What about these people that have dogs and let them run in their front yards?
Yeah,
And they jump over the fence and get on the road?
that has no limit on the fence then.
Well,
I think it's your best issue is let this be, let the sleeping dog sleep. and worry about the real issues in this township.
I thought we're not distinguishing between pets and, so if the dog gets out of a 3-foot fence, well, then that's another issue, right?
Yeah, but you don't want to legislate inclusive of fences.
No.
So I just think
Okay.
that we need the clarity for the farm agriculture for the fence height.
And that's what this does, except that it's still putting a maximum height of 4.
Yeah, so I think that the farm agriculture should be permissive for them to go higher than that if it is general practice of maintaining their livestock.
So, you basically have a couple of options here. You could leave language as it's presented. You could get rid of the height regulation for agricultural pasture uses altogether. You could raise it to something that you think is reasonable. Or we could take this fence issue off, we could continue to look at it and just move forward with the other piece. So those are kind of 4 options you have.
Personally, I'd like to bring it to close.
Sure.
Because we have too many rewind reruns, and we need to get some work accomplished.
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement on the accessory building. And I haven't heard any public comment in any way in opposition of what we want to give to our neighbors the ability to do. I think it's just clarifying the farm agriculture fence height.
With the standard practices, I mean, you're trying to provide some protection, so I don't want to regulate the height of somebody's fence for their farmland. That doesn't make sense
I think
to me.
Linda put it best, that, they're not gonna put up 6 foot if they only need 4.
But I think what he's talking about is the aesthetic value of, the smaller lots and somebody putting up a 12-foot nasty old fence with nothing in it just to hide their junk here that they're not supposed to have.
Well,
This isn't about the farms, it's about the smaller lots.
Yeah, so this would only be for active farmland or pastures.
Okay. Okay, so if there's something there, then they do whatever their standard practice is, and we don't have to put a limit on it. That's what we're talking about, right? Okay. I just wanted to be clear. Yes, Mr. Lawson?
I'd like to move approval of the suggested changes in section 203 and 301 of the zoning ordinance.
I'll second it.
Do I have to do a roll call?
I haven't heard the new wording. I want to hear the new wording.
So just for clarification, are you talking about the language that's presented or with an amendment?
I was talking about the language as presented.
Clarifying that for decorative, it's whatever. For the agricultural uses, it's whatever the standard practices are. We don't have a limit.
So that's not the motion that he made. He was motioning for this language.
Motion as written.
Yeah.
Which is saying what I just said? No?
No.
Well, that's not it. This is it.
That's,
I think,
But limited.
Forget my chicken
I think the
scratch.
effect of it is the same as what you said, yes.
oh, okay, I'm good. Okay. So can you put some words around that so we can have it on tape and,
So there is, I put together a draft resolution that you could use for your recommendation, because you're ultimately making a recommendation to the board.
Dan, I don't have my packet, it wasn't in there. It wasn't in my box.
No, I took them all out and I put them on
Whereas the
the
township
desk.
is
I don't have
authorized
any
to
of
establish zoning regulations under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act 110 of 206, and whereas the Township Planning Commission has studied the proposed text amendment, determined that there was a need to update the zoning ordinance for section 301, accessory structures, and 302, fence regulations. That varies, I think, with the
Commissioner Lawson, the numbers that you see here,
yeah.
the 203 is only in there.
Oh, okay, all right.
For reference purposes, there's no
All right.
changes.
All right. Then, the Township Commission has studied the proposed text amendment and determined there was a need to update zoning ordinance language to section 3.01, accessory structures, which we liberalized, and 3.02, fence regulations, which we liberalized. And whereas the PC has reviewed the updating zoning ordinance language and determined language depicted is consistent with the intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, and whereas the Planning Commission held a public hearing, which was appropriately noticed on this matter today, July 18th, and did receive comments from the public. Now be resolved that the Salem Township Planning Commission recommends the Township Board of Trustees adopt the proposed text amendment with draft language dated 6/30/16 for language in section 3.01 accessory structures and section 3.02 fence regulations of the zoning ordinance.
What's the June 30th date in there? Why, that's, okay.
So then you'll need a second, and then you can do discussion.
Okay, we need a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, thank you. What Bill just read.
Well, my theory is that this can be voted up or down, and if it's voted down, then somebody can propose whatever other thing they want to propose. But at least it's a start, saying, do we agree or not agree with this?
Yeah, okay.
I respect what you're doing.
So no other comments? Okay, you ready?
If the current language states that someone's gonna have to come in and get a variance, the current language states, makes it so that someone has to come in and get a variance to go and farm that 80 acres that they just first laid claim to, never farmed in their life. And we have an opportunity to make the language different so that that is not required at all, no matter what height we call any fence. I believe we should do that here and now. We have a chance to fix it, make it right completely, which I believe that is, in my mind, that is right completely. We should do that now. And I believe that would take changes to what is currently written.
One change, just taking out that height restriction.
Right. Yep.
That makes sense.
I call the previous question, Madam Chair.
Yes. Okay.
Should we also, I'm looking at number 4 here.
Okay.
Since people may have animals other than horses in pastures, it could just be called a livestock pasture instead of a horse pasture.
If I may. So we started this as active farmland, and then through the discussion, recognized that horse pastures are not always necessarily a farm activity.
Right.
That's why we added the horse pastures in separately.
Mm-hmm.
So this, the active farmland covers all farm animals, and
Okay.
then because horses are sometimes recognized as non-farm animals,
Okay.
we put that in as well.
I just wanted to make sure that it didn't restrict someone doing farming
It would not.
like emus.
It would not.
Okay.
Are we voting?
Okay, yes. We need a roll call vote. Okay.
Mr. Khan,
No.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Merlot,
Yes.
Mr. Vergari,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, no. Mr. Lewandowski,
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so now the person that comes in, gets 80 acres, has to get a variance to go above 4 feet.
You said no.
No, we were making,
We're taking
we
that
took
out.
that part out.
We did not make a new motion on what we took out. We made a motion, we just voted on his motion, which was to accept as written.
Thank you.
We need to vote it, and if you want to do that new, different thing, we need to vote this one no, and then create a new motion, a new second, and another vote. Oh, this is when it gets messy.
Redo it. We've got the language.
Yeah.
I thought it was just gonna be stricken.
I thought it was just gonna be stricken too.
Right.
That was not the motion.
Not today.
How do we
Someone can
fix
make
it?
another one. Well, someone can make
Someone
another
on the
one.
winning
How-
side
fix
makes a
this?
motion to.
Wait a second, how you fix it? You just passed a motion. But how do you fix a passed motion?
Damn,
That's what I'm
somebody on the
asking.
winning side, on the
Bring forward
side
another
that just
motion.
prevails, makes a
Motion
motion
was made,
to
voted on, and
rescind the
passed.
motion.
You could do that. Somebody could make a motion to rescind that motion.
I would make a motion that we rescind that.
Somebody who just wanted a yes.
Someone else
Yes.
is- okay.
Okay.
The other option is that we can come back and fix this.
That's what I think.
Move forward with the language.
But we're all talking on, we're all saying the same thing, why don't we just do it now? Be done with it.
We aren't all saying the same.
Why would you publish
We're
something?
gonna be saying something different. I've heard 10-foot fence, I've heard 8-foot fence, I've heard 6-foot fence. I mean, I think we need to take another look at it, put some language together, come back with it at the next meeting.
So as it stands right now, the
I
language
disagree.
that you're forwarding to the board is more permissive. It allows for up to 4 feet. It allows to get rid of the decorative nature. We can move forward with that. We can come back. I'm happy to do more research into what the industry standard is for the height of the front yard fence. Or you can, get rid of the height altogether. But I didn't hear any clear consensus from.
Yes.
This was all
If you
discussed.
move forward tonight,
Last June.
based on what your planner has said, and the township board votes on it, because they're going with your recommendation, they have to publish this in a newspaper.
You guys are gonna look like
You have
idiots.
to go through, you're gonna have a whole community that now says, you can have animals, but you can only have a 4-foot fence unless you wanna come pay for a variance. I would highly recommend
I'm gonna
that
rescind
either
it, Linda.
this become
Yeah,
a
we-
motion.
And we can take another
or you
vote.
rescind it.
Okay, I would like to rescind the last motion and
Is all you gotta do.
take,
motion to rescind it.
reword it, okay, I'd like to rescind the last motion.
You're making a motion to rescind.
Yes, I am.
And
I will
some-
second.
And you're second. And you're voting.
Okay. So now
So
we're
all in
voting
favor?
on the rescind.
Roll call, or voice, or what?
I think that since it was a roll call vote
Has to be
to
roll
start with,
call.
you have to do a roll call.
Yep.
Mr. Lawson,
No.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Lewandowski,
No.
Mr. Viveri,
No,
Ms. Merlot,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, yes.
So it has been recalled. Now, do we have to re-vote again on that same motion that was made?
So you would remake the motion
With the changes.
with the change that you want to have, and then you can do your vote.
what changes?
Well, that's the question. What do you want? Do you want to get rid of the height requirement altogether, or do you want to make it 5 feet? Do you want to make it 8 feet? Do you want to make it?
Any number that we put in there will end up being wrong.
Wrong, absolutely.
Any number that, as soon as, someone's gonna wanna have pterodactyls, and they're gonna want it 20 feet high and put a net over the thing.
Well, come on,
Who knows?
move this
Not
along.
to be argumentative, but the question is, do you want pterodactyls in the front yard? I mean, that's why the front yard is.
There actually is one in this township.
Yeah.
The standard is to protect the front yard, for whatever reason, better or for worse. If you want to go no holes bars for farmland in the front yard, then by all means, you can take the height restriction out altogether.
Guess we're just not seeing the downside to the height
There you
restriction.
go.
At least me, I am not seeing
I
the
just-
downside. In an agricultural community, I'm not seeing it, so.
Yeah.
But then again, well, somebody will show it to me next month, I'm sure.
I don't, I'm not proposing one thing one way or another. I'm trying to
Sure.
Right.
explain what the standards are and what.
Formative language, formative thoughts.
That's it.
Okay.
That's
That's
it.
it.
Well, somebody have a motion, Bart, would you like to make a motion? It's time. We need the wording.
Yeah.
We need good wording.
So you could just move to approve the resolution that was read with the change to the language from the 30th to remove the restriction of 4 feet.
For,
If,
whatever it says in there, right?
So here's what it would say then. Fences enclosing active farmland or horse pasture shall be exempt from the regulations and requirements of this section.
Fine.
Fine.
that was the intention in the beginning.
Yes.
We discussed it last month. complaint that came here, I don't remember exactly what it was people on a smaller lot and people putting up hideous fences on next door to them, and they thought there should be some restriction. And the discussion that ensued was that we don't want to impact farmland but houses that are right on top of the road or close to the road and a small front yard and putting up a big hideous fence. That was the real impetus that I remember about this, changing this provision.
We're talking about going
So-
to contain of the animals.
Yeah, if you, I don't know if a 4-foot fence is fine for the front yard, if that would please people, but then exempt the farms from that.
That's what we're talking
And that would satisfy everything. We've made the 4-foot less restrictive, which was the intent, but to have something in place as a guideline. And we didn't anticipate it impacting the farms. We said the farms are totally different. The farms aren't sitting on top of the road with just a little piece of property. You know, the farms have fences going all around, and nobody has a problem with that. It's just the people living next door with a little lot, and the other person has a little lot, and they put up a hideous fence in the front. And that was for the
about. I have a
complaint.
question.
That's already prohibited. I mean, that's already been prohibited. So we were making allowance. So if there are farmlands that already have fences, you know, higher than, I mean, those, but basically what this did was make that permissible.
Right. But it was already permissible, so really, you know.
Well, technically it was not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this was writing a language to permit the activity that you wanted to see and it was already happening.
I think maybe we ought to wait until you could put together some language to make sure that we capture everything that was said, rather than jumping in here and making some motion.
Propose what
and
the
then-
language needs to be, it's right now.
Okay, well, give them a motion.
We're just saying that, I'm not giving a motion, we can discuss and write down and draft or whatever, let's not do happy motions going
Well, that's what
crazy.
I was trying to
Well, I know.
avoid.
However we wanna write it, what I feel is needed here is just saying there's no fence restriction when it's farmland or pasture, farm or pasture land.
So, it's fine if that's the way you want to go. I would caution you that that takes all the restrictions off. So you could end up with a 6-foot privacy fence, you know, along the backside of a ditch, you know, right on the outside of the road right of way, if written. So if you're taking all restrictions off, then you could end up with a 6, 8, 10-foot privacy fence that runs the length of a piece of agricultural land. Exempted by this language. So it would allow for that to happen. So we could.
If a farm, okay, then let's play devil's advocate here.
That's all I'm doing.
If a existing farmer had existing fence, and they said, oh, I wanna change it, and they're just gonna make it, you know, solid plank or whatever, instead of just a high tension wire or something like that, what would stop them from doing that right now?
The zoning ordinance. If it was in the front yard, technically the zoning ordinance would not permit it.
That's why I'm saying be careful of what motions you make and what you do here, because there's other language that could be impacted by it.
All we want is clarity on this, that the height of 4 foot is not restrictive to farms and agriculture. We're not talking about the structure, we're talking about the height. And what I would offer up to our planner to put in there in language is not to exceed, you know, a reasonable height. Right now it's at 4 feet, I would offer that not to exceed 6 feet. And if they need to go more than 6 feet for some strange beast, then at that time they need the variance. Let's move it along.
What's the pitfall to that, Mr. Muirhead?
Well, I think 6 foot is fair enough.
Linda?
But
Linda?
also, you gotta be careful of people with dogs still in their front yard with a 3-foot fence. Ridiculous, guys. Dog jumps over a fence, gets hit, you got a lawsuit.
Well, that's why we're
No.
changing. Well,
No
that's
lawsuit.
6-foot fence makes sense. and a front yard setback.
Well, first of all, I think you need to think, you got a planner here, my guess is he has no real experience in agriculture.
Exactly.
And
Nice.
so we're talking.
That's fine.
It's true.
What
It's true.
I'm saying is he has no real experience in agriculture. If you drive through this community, and this community is serious about wanting to retain its rural atmosphere, it needs to then allow the things that agriculture needs. I don't know much about the yaks, but some of you served with Casey Kelly. They have some serious fence to keep those yaks in. And that's kind of what we're saying. A farmer's not gonna go out, I heard this gentleman talk about a 6-foot privacy fence. A farmer's gonna put up a fence that keeps the animal in. The animals I'm keeping in weigh 2,000 pounds. Privacy fence is ludicrous. You gotta have those posts in, you're talking about setting them. A farmer, and Bonnie said, I don't know if you've heard it, what truly impacts a farmer is the economics. The reason why barbed wire fence has been used for 100 years is because it's economical. And so a farmer, and I told you this before, a farmer's gonna put up the fence that's needed to keep the animals in. They're not gonna spend more money than they have to. And you can drive through the community and look at that. Mr. Muirhead can speak to the horse farms, he's more into that industry than I am. But for the people that, the friends I have in that industry, they're no different than I am. They have a fence to keep their animals in. They're not trying to go high, they're not trying to hide their animals. And we do go right to the road. We do go right to the backside of the ditch. When we're talking about a 50-foot setback, I calculated for my half-mile of road frontage on one farm, to put it back 50 feet, I'd lose 3 acres. So I can live with 6 foot, but I would prefer to see that you allow what that agricultural application needs.
To be in keeping with the application.
That's
So maybe
the
we
way I
just
would
say
do it.
that.
Again, because I, like I said, I have neighbors that had emus, and you guys all know Casey Kelly has yaks, and I'm not sure that 6 is good for them. Is it good for my cows? Yes.
I can appreciate what she's saying.
Right.
And unfortunately, oftentimes the regulations are not written for reasonable people. And I'll just say that because while a normal person who's doing a farming operation would not think of putting up a privacy fence, when you change the regulations, somebody would. And you have people who move to this township all the time with lots of different ideas about things that they want to do.
Because there are no rules.
So if you open things wide open, while a reasonable person, a reasonable farmer would do that. So I'm cautioning you to think about what the long-term implications might be. So maybe there's an opportunity that you could say something about opacity in this.
Okay.
If you don't, in fact, want to see the privacy fences, but.
Okay, that's good. And I would just like to say, we are not farmers. We know farmers. We value their input. So that's why we have the discussion. We're glad you're here. You guys were talking about something. What was it? What would you like to share?
Oh, well, I was just being cynical, Madam Chair. That what's it matter?
Great.
We have all sorts of rules in this township, but no enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
In the intent,
You know,
at the
if we
beginning of all this, how we got into the farms was not to have any impact on the farms. And the language has been liberalized. We never heard any complaints except about the smaller lots and people complaining about big fences in the front. So we addressed it and we said, we don't want to be real restrictive, so we went to the 4 foot instead of the 3 foot. That was with the intent. We had no one, it was discussed that we didn't want to do anything that was going to have a negative impact on the farms. Everybody knows that farms don't have this little front yard. You know, they're and when they have buildings and everything, they aren't just sitting on the road. You know, so that was the intent of it, and we didn't change anything that had to do with farms. And the whole discussion tonight's been about farms, and we never did anything to change it about farms. We liberalized the language, as Bill said. And now we got into all these, and then, you know.
It's simple. All we wanted to do is not restrict agriculture and farms to a 4-foot fence.
And we're not.
Enforcement.
For non-farm.
But the old ordinance, it didn't restrict them to a 3-foot fence.
Technically, it's.
Yeah, it did.
But
It
okay.
sure did.
Well, it
So,
sure,
so,
Okay.
and I
Oh,
will
boy.
admit,
Who's
I'm
way
not a
off
farmer. The language that I put forth here is the language that I've seen in dozens of other ordinances that have not seemed to cause problems for the farmers in the past. So I'm happy to look into it more. I will do what you would direct me to do.
I think the intent, wasn't addressed to farmers, and I think it just happened to be poorly written in past, and we expanded on it, so maybe we can have language that can clarify it, exempt the farmers from it, but satisfy the people with the smaller lots that they don't have these great big huge fences put up or whatever in the front yards.
Okay. I agree that we shouldn't be willy-nilly in our ordinances. I don't wanna send anything to the board if it's not right. I think we are all saying the same thing, but let's, if we could get our language and our words together to make sure it's right and that satisfies the farmers, that satisfies the small people with the small lots, trying to hide whatever, but,
So you don't necessarily need to hold another public hearing. You could direct
Okay.
me to update this language. We could bring it back at the next meeting so that we don't send a motion on to the board that's not correct. We can,
Yeah.
you can
does that
update
make
this.
sense?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you.
And so the direction that you're giving me is to look at liberalizing the agricultural fences further than 4 feet, but we want to still have some kind of protection so that we don't end up with.
Yeah, well, like what Dan was saying, obviously, and these guys are right, the farmers, I mean, yeah, they're not gonna do that, but they're not the issue that brought this whole crazy thing up here,
Okay.
so we don't wanna penalize them.
The only question I would have,
Yes.
and I don't know what the background is, define farmer, define lot size. Just, you're kind of loosey-goosey, because somebody can go out there and say, well, I have something that maybe they classify, but we say, well, no, that's a small animal, well, they say it's a large animal. You need to be more, a little bit restrictive on what is a farmer, what do you classify as a farmer?
What's his zone?
The thing of it is I
What's
mean,
the property zone?
if you have agricultural land, you could have a half acre, I guess. No, you'd have to have two plus acres, plus whatever frontage and setback losses you have to be zoned agricultural residential. So it could be as low as, 2¼ acres with someone putting a fence like that up. That's really what it comes down to.
That's
I mean,
where-
but you're allowed to have a horse, you're allowed to have cows and goats and chickens and emus, whatever, on that same piece of land, so.
I guess where I'm really coming from here is there's certain restrictions when you come back to farming. And I know our neighbor is one of them, we've talked about her, but bottom line is when you go from 1 animal to 14 animals, to how many animals on 9 acres, and fences have to go accordingly, and then other things keep going. I just have a lot of problem with the definition of a farmer. What does a farmer mean? I'm from the west, and a farmer was a guy that plowed the ground. A rancher was a guy that raised animals. There's a clear distinction between the two of them. We don't have that distinction here, but what we're really, where I'm coming back here saying is, someone wants to have a pet horse. Well, is he a farmer? Or is that a pet horse? Where are you kind of coming from when you say a farmer? I'm having a little bit of issue with just how you define somebody coming in saying, this applies to you, but no, it don't apply
It's
to
not
you,
the
or
person.
back and forth.
It's not the person, it's the land.
It's the land. It goes with this.
It's not the person, it's the land. If he's
Because we're
got
saying
an
like industrial property
Yeah,
has
he's
a
got
higher, has
agricultural
a much higher
property.
restriction on
Yeah,
fence
but I
for
know,
security purposes.
but we're all AR in here, and most everything in here is AR.
Okay,
That's all.
all right, so we're gonna
That's good thoughts.
table that, is that what it is? We'll bring up table, it was wrong.
Actually,
Postpone.
Postpone the.
Postpone, postpone.
may I ask, may we modify the resolution for recommendation of approval, bringing forward to the board, section 301, which we have no disagreement with, nor did anybody in the public have disagreement with.
That's a
And,
great idea. Move
and
forward
let's
with
move
what we
that
can move
forward,
God bless
and,
us.
you know, let's give them something to approve.
I think that was one of your choices that I presented a month ago, so by all means, you can take this piece off.
But then like Melissa, we have to put that in the paper and do that all over again, so
Yes.
if we keep it together, just keep it,
No.
no?
I have people waiting for part of this
Yeah.
Oh,
to
oh,
pass.
oh,
We gotta
okay,
move
okay.
this
That's why,
Okay.
that's why I'm like, please, if we can do it tonight.
Okay,
People are
we didn't
waiting.
realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's waiting,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So, somebody can make a motion,
I'd like to make the motion.
and you could just reiterate this resolution, you don't need to reread it, just taking off section,
Right.
3.0.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution for recommendation of approval to our township trustees, and with the modification that section 302 fence regulations be removed. And what we're moving forward on is section 301, accessory structures. Is that good enough?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Dan.
Glad you brought that up. Does anybody have any comment on this accessory structures? Bill?
No.
No? DJ? Any comment on the accessory structures from you two?
No. I'm good with accessory structures. Mr. Vigari just needs a minute, he wants to review something.
Okay. I think You're good? Oh, okay.
We tabled 3.02 for now.
Postpone
So
it.
come back to
Moving forward.
Okay.
Well, I just, when we do this, we're going back to the 3 foot that was in the original language.
For now.
Yeah, so I just want to make that clear.
That's, what do you mean, we just stay with what's in existence and that's never been enforced, so what's in
It's
there?
enforced, people
Is it?
come in
Yeah.
and they ask for a fence, and we say, you have to have a 3-foot
Yeah,
fence.
yeah.
So,
So they go out and they put up a 4-foot one. Okay, so for the vote, Ms. Merlot,
Yes.
Mr. Vigari,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, yes. Mr. Lewandowski,
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson.
Yes. We've got 500 guys.
Good gravy.
Good grief. Small bites. Huh?
Okay. 6B. 16-005 Arbor Hill Citizens Drop-Off Relocation. Site plan review.
This is an application from Advanced Disposal. They presented a site plan that would amend the existing site there at, surrounded by 6 Mile, Napier, and 5 Mile. There's an existing citizen drop-off station or tipping station currently located towards the corner of 6 Mile and Napier, with an access point off of Napier. Their proposal is to move those facilities to the south end of the landfill, into the area where they also have existing facilities like the material recovery station and the LF gas processing plant. The site is zoned general industrial, and this is a permitted use in that district. The proposed drop-off station would be right in the middle of this site. On the second page of my report, you can see an aerial photo. I put a yellow square around the area where they're proposing. Currently, that site has an existing gravel parking lot. The reason that they have chosen this spot is because there is an existing way station there, so at the end of that existing way station, where folks would come in, it would operate very much the same as it does currently. Surrounding this area in terms of uses is mostly open space. The only real actual development is the golf course to the south side of 5 Mile. There is, and this is a typo in my report, where it says west, to the east actually is Wayne County. There is a residential development that's more than 2,000 feet from the road. They do meet all of the area width, height, and setback requirements of the zoning ordinance. The site is already developed, so there are no existing natural features on the site. They're not proposing any building location. As I mentioned, the location for the new facility, the build a wall for the tipping station, is centrally located. It's in the area where the existing gravel lot is at the end of the existing way station. It appears that this, from the access point on Napier Road to the station is slightly longer, so it may help with stacking space. I'm not familiar with the existing operation in terms of day-to-day stacking. Maybe some of you are, maybe there's some folks here that can speak to that. So,
Well, you got to get in line with all the trucks.
right.
Even though they do say to the right is Salem residents, you know, but the trucks still get in that line also. They use everything available there. And you can be waiting quite a while.
So I don't know that this would satisfy that or help with that issue or not. It does appear to be slightly longer, but maybe by a couple of hours. They are not proposing any new landscaping, indicating that this is an existing site, and there does appear to be existing landscaping around the perimeter, including berms and landscaping that was part of the original development. They have proposed some new lighting. They did provide a photometric study that showed that the light levels dropped to 0 well before you would get to any property line. And the fixture detail that they proposed show that all those light fixtures are fully shielded and down directed. No new sign is being proposed. There's no buildings, there's no floor elevations. They're not proposing any new utilities as part of the site plan. They are proposing some grading and indicate that the existing stormwater facilities will handle what they're proposing. Indicating that their MDEQ permit covers the stormwater, but we would defer to the township engineer to look at both the grading and the stormwater. Township engineer did provide a site plan where they have a site plan review where they have a number of outstanding items. In discussions that I've had with the township engineer, they feel that none of these items will actually change the proposed layout of the site plan. It's just details that they need to clean up. So ultimately, if you see fit to, we would recommend approval of this site plan with a condition that they resubmit for administrative review where they address all the outstanding items on the engineer's review. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Coming off of Napier, there's only room for 3 cars in line, is that true?
No, I don't think so.
They're making it longer, but only by about 3 car lengths, you said?
That's just kind of eyeballing it. Looks like it's somewhere around 1,500 feet or more.
Yeah, I thought it looks longer on
It looks
print.
longer, yeah.
How long do you wait in line? From the day and time we go.
If it's only cars going in there, with this length of driveway, it's not gonna be a problem.
Yeah,
There's never that many cars.
No.
Take the cars out from the trucks.
It should
There's a
make
lot
it
more room
better.
for It's much better.
Because the trucks will still be going up.
I think
to
in
the
general,
Right,
guys, this is
normally.
a safety proposal. You are not mixing the big trucks with
Okay. I was gonna
with
ask that.
resident
Is there any
passenger
trucks going in
vehicles
there at
and
all?
like pickups, I think.
They wouldn't have access to the hill because
Huh?
they're on the south side of the railroad tracks.
So that would eliminate the trucks
Right.
clogging the traffic?
I believe that they still may have some trucks going to the material recovery
Yeah,
center, but you wouldn't have
recycling
those
center.
same trucks that are going to the landfill.
For the landfill's sake, it improves moving the trucks through, because you don't have the cars.
Correct.
For the cars, they don't have the trucks, so they don't have to wait for the trucks, it's just the cars, and they go a lot quicker.
Right. Seems
The
like
cars from the south of the township, like me, would come in from the south. It would
Yeah.
no longer be in 6 Mile, so that would take some traffic off of 6 Mile,
Right.
because you'd be coming in from 5 Mile
Yeah, I went by it today.
so that disperses the traffic better too.
Right, absolutely.
I guess my only thought is when it comes to the landfill, I hate to keep seeing these things slide. I think they should make it so it's convenient for us as residents. And so, that's a concern, that would be a thought. I know it's minor, but you know, with all the stuff and all the hoopla, I think they should make an effort so to not mix the cars or the trucks, or ensure that the trucks aren't holding up the line while somebody wants to drop off their 4 bags of trash.
So I believe that that is the intent of moving this, is to
Okay.
separate those two. I wish the applicant was here to help clarify that.
Sure.
It is my understanding that northern access will still remain for the trucks that are going to the landfill, and this will just be the residential portion as moved to the south.
I went by there today and there were no cars lined up, you know, and there were a bunch of trucks lined up, so.
Just in looking at, whatever, page 3, I guess, on the proposal. It looks like you drive in one spot, as you enter in, you back up to one spot to the containers as they would exist today, to drop off, regular refuse. And then you pull out and you possibly stop again to drop off where the recycled materials would be. So I'd ask, how do they propose to get people to,
It's the same as what they have now, Bart.
what?
Where you dump your garbage off, that you can pull just directly straight ahead and dump your recycling stuff into the bed over there, then
Well,
you make the loop and go back out. This is the same thing, basically.
Is that a paved area in between, or is that grass, or what is that?
It's just paved.
So you've got the tipping stations in the first spot that you would get to,
Yeah,
after you come out of the weigh station.
and then you do the J-hook left, and you see the recycling container area there.
Right.
I guess my question is, let's not say they're doing something bad, let's say, what is their intention for how the traffic would move in there and drop off both garbage and recycled materials? How would a person move throughout that piece of property?
So I think you hit the tipping station first, so that's the wall, kind of central.
On the right, you got the stair step.
Yep, and then after you dump your stuff there, you would go on around to the left, around the curve, the J-hook, if you will.
So at that point, you stop and leave your, I guess what I'm saying is, how do they propose on handling traffic on the exit side, on that recycling side?
Oh, so if people are stopped to drop something off.
Yeah, now you just kind of got a logjam. Right now, people, at least what I do, I don't know, right or wrong, I back up, I chuck my garbage off the back of the pickup truck into the bins, I lower my recycling containers, I walk them over, and I try to find a place to stuff it in there. Walk back with the recycling containers, put it in. I parked once.
Right.
I parked once, shut off the engine, done whatever, started up and pulled out once. I'm not getting in and out of the vehicle twice. I guess what I'm just saying is, what's their proposal as to how do they see a person moving through there, dropping off?
It appears that if we go to the tipping station first, dump your garbage, you have to get back in the vehicle, drive around the circle to the next spot.
Then I'd say I'd like to see something that says that whole other side where people just kind of want to just flow through is maybe as safe, has more dedicated area to pull off, park, whatever, as does the first tipping station.
Well, the proposed concrete area appears to be about 40 feet wide. From the area where the recycling bins are, there's 1, 2, 3, 5 of them at an angle.
Right.
And then that space from the heavier concrete indicated with the speckled gray through the gray appears to be about 40 feet wide. So it seems like there's plenty of space to do a bypass there if somebody's parked in front of the house.
Yeah. You ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, can I make a motion, or is that out of order?
I think I'd like to see some clarity as to, you know,
Bart,
Yeah.
if you look at it the way it is now, the way you say you do it, you're tying up a dump offs for garbage. So when you walk across the parking lot to put your stuff in your, now you're impeding with the traffic coming in. And then you come back and you tie that spot up. This way, you get rid of your garbage, you drive off to the recycling bin, that opens that up and keeps it. But there's not really that many citizens at one time in a traffic jam running into the dump.
And there's
Yeah.
wider space.
Where I'm coming
It's
at,
wider
where I'm
space.
coming at is where you would anticipate pedestrians moving. Right now, everybody pulls in there, everybody anticipates this. If you were to take, let me put it this way. If you were to take the existing, the way it is, the way it is today, and after you drop off your garbage and your recycling, you come down there to that
Yeah.
first little stop sign, you turn left, and now your bins, the garbage bins are on your left-hand side. If you were all of a sudden put people walking across there, that would be a surprise. If all of a sudden people are walking across there from the parking lot that's to your right to bins that are to your left, that would be a surprise. It would be, it's not anticipated. Yeah. Correct. So if there was something on here that says, hey, you pull off here, pull in, pull out, this is where you pull in,
But if the recycling section is further away than it is now,
you're driving
You're
through
gonna
the
drive
recycling
there.
section to get out of here.
you'll drive there.
You are driving through the recycling area to get out.
Well,
But I think
that's,
they're saying it's wide enough so that people are gonna
They
be
can get
next to
around.
the recycling bins and the passing traffic will be.
I'm looking at this and I don't doubt that this is way wide enough.
Well, I personally go down there.
What I'd like to see is something that just says, this is how we are planning on having traffic move through and stop at this second station. So that bypass traffic goes here, pedestrian traffic goes here, and we're trying not to get anybody split. Even if it's just an angled pull in, pull out, you come up to this, there's the recycling, you pull in like this, bypass traffic just goes this way, when you pull out, you go like that. And these people pulling out after dropping off recycling are anticipating and saying, yeah, there's someone parked here, I anticipate them to be walking across to the recycling bins.
But if you look at the plans, it's raised. The area in between that,
In between,
So once you come from the wall where the tipping station is, which is your first stop after the weigh station, you get in your car, you drive through where it says traffic with the
Yeah.
arrow.
driving
Come
directly west, you're saying there?
Yep, driving
Yep.
to the west, take
Okay.
a left, come around the curve, and if you had recycling, then you would pull up to one of those recycling bins.
Okay,
And
and what
nobody,
I'm saying is,
nobody would be walking across that area. Then the cars that don't have recycling would just bypass that area and stay to the right and head on out. I'm not trying to,
no, I understand. It doesn't say they pull to the left near the recycling. It doesn't say they pull to the right. It doesn't say this is how you pull in nose to tail or side to side in an echelon or whatever like that. It doesn't.
what would make you feel more comfortable there?
It would make me feel, if they just said, this is how we see as a safe manner for the cars to pull in and out of this recycling.
And the applicant was here, we could ask him to tell us.
That would be.
We could,
Now, I'll put it this way. Is there something that says they have to have that on here for it to pass? Then I've got no legs to stand on.
Right.
If you think it would make a better site plan, we can require it. I mean,
Well, it's aesthetics.
and you could, I mean, even if you did want to move forward with an approval, you could just request that some striping be included on the site plan to indicate where a bypass lane will go and where.
In the interest of safety. Yes. In the interest of safety.
I don't have,
Yeah, that'd be
Bart, I'm just sure for purposes of liability that they'll have everything covered.
You're probably right.
Because if you go there now, it's not gonna be it's nothing like what they're proposing. What they're proposing is much more efficient and the traffic's much better. And I'm sure that their attorneys have already said, you know, let's make sure nobody gets run over there. That's for
That
sure.
would be a good. Okay.
Any other?
I'm ready for the motion.
Oh, yes, Bonnie?
I don't have privilege to your site plan, but I want to know if the dumping and the recycling are very far apart, because that's going to mean to my husband and to a lot of other people that they're going to take a second person. I'm going to be the second person who has to run the plastic over to the recycling. And you guys, and he'll be throwing the stuff in the dump. And that way there'll still be somebody running around there in the traffic pattern. And it's just the way it will happen at my house.
I
And
think
they'll
Bonnie was.
They'll take their 10-year-old kid with them and say, you put the recycling in, I put the garbage in.
They're very separate. They're very separate, so you'll be driving to one, and then you'll be following the roadway around, and you'll be driving to the second one, so.
Which is a pain in the backside, because that way we have to, like Bart said, we have to stop going.
It's 50 feet.
Hey, it's good exercise.
It's 50, 60 feet.
I like that.
Huh?
That's positive. Look at that.
Thank you.
Me too.
I think recycling's a pain in the neck.
No, probably not.
Yeah, I'm.
Hey, Pam?
Yes.
I think the more important reason here is what they're doing, is why are they doing it? There's always a reason behind doing something, okay? And through the years, the dump has always, every board that's got in here, they've always outsmarted them, BS'd them to get stuff done, okay? And now this might sound good, but you guys gotta think of what's behind their idea of doing this. You know what I mean? That Dave guy, you can't believe what he tells you.
I would
You know,
not doubt
and-
that this
and-
comes from a liability standpoint.
You know, yeah, I mean, well, no, I'm saying there's always a reason for those guys to do something.
I-
Now, they'll tell you this is this, but there's really another reason. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, you
You
know.
lose one.
There's the
and
plan and there's the
I'll
marketing.
share with you that I made a living at helping companies on reducing risk. And one of the things I would have reduced, and I would have told them as a consultant, is stop the commingling of traffic and pedestrian with your heavy truck traffic.
I agree with you. There's always a
It would
reason.
have been a no-brainer.
Augie, there's always a reason for these people down at the dump to do something. And they'll always give you the bright side of things. To make it look good, then they're gonna end up doing something that you don't know about. I'd suggest look at it in deeper detail before you jump into it,
They're reducing their liability.
you know?
Yeah, it's.
And increasing their efficiency.
There's very
The
few
truck
trucks.
And actually, it's a benefit to those of us, not me included, because I only have to take my trash to the curb. But those that go there, this is gonna be much more convenient.
Not a lot of truck traffic.
Not a lot, no truck traffic.
Well, there is some.
So I think it's a win. Mr. Lawson is gonna try to make a motion.
I'm gonna try unless it's out of order.
No.
I move that the Salem Township Planning Commission give its approval to the proposal by the landfill for relocating the citizen entrance further south on Napier, subject to the concerns raised by the Stan Tech letter of July 14th, that those be addressed by administrative review.
I second it.
Is there a second?
Yeah. Daryl. He was.
I think it doesn't, just, yeah, voice vote.
Well,
All those in favor of the motion?
No, this should be roll call. It's an official business item.
I don't think you have to. With the site plan approval, I think you can do a voice vote.
As a permanent historical record with a voice vote.
Whatever you like to do.
Well, if there's anything we should be doing on
Let's
roll
just do
call,
roll
it's.
call.
We'll do the roll call.
Don't worry about it. We've wasted so much time. Ms. Merlo?
Yes.
Mr. Vivieri?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, yes. Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Khan?
Yes.
Mr. Lewandowski?
Yes.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes.
It's passed, Madam Chair. Unanimous
Thank
vote.
you. Number 7, old business items, none. Number 8, approval of the minutes June 20th, 2016.
Make a motion to approve the minutes, June 17th.
I'll second it. June 17th?
June 20th.
Oh, I thought you said 17th.
June 20th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Misunderstood.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of June 20th, 2016 as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Number 9, reports and correspondence.
You have a letter from Novi Planning Commission, City Council, and you know about,
Master plan.
Master plan.
you wanna look at a disc, and we have a disc. They sent us this letter and one disc.
Okay.
Don't fight over it.
So, or you can contact them and.
Sure. Thank you. Number 10,
Go ahead.
public comment. Yes, Mr. Lawson.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wish to announce that this will be my last meeting. I'm moving out of the township, so therefore I must depart from the board. I've been on the board for a year and a half. And I want to comment that this board has been a pleasure to serve on. It has served the people of Salem Township exceptionally well. It consistently moves to enlarge their liberties and their rights. And that the leadership of this board has been consistently polite and considerate regardless of the environment in the room. So I thank all of you for your collegiate work on this board, and we'll depart with fond memories.
Well,
Thank you for your service.
Mr. Lawson, thank you for your service, and when you leave, will you take that 6-foot fence with you?
Are you gonna join the planning commission in your new township?
Oh, pick me, pick me.
Take your bullseye with you then. Okay.
You know, you didn't have to move to have this action.
Other public comment?
Any other public comment?
Linda?
Just like to thank Mr. Lawson for his service and for the many times he's been a voice of reason at the table. Thank you, Bill.
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Cheers.
Okay. Number 11, adjournment at 9:05. Did I talk to you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.